What's the rule about running in the house?
Always run hard out of the box.
That's not what I said.
She's running third. Here comes the play at the plate. Uh-oh.
Let's clean that up before Mom gets home.
Exciting baseball action and quality family time? There's a place for that. Nationals Park. Get more bang for your buck this baseball season with deals on tickets and concessions for the whole family. See you at Nationals Park, your place to run wild. Buy your tickets today at nationals.com.
Talk Radio WRNR Studios. It's time for Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob Mario and David Welch.
Thank you, Cliff. Good morning. Welcome into the program. Our show this morning brought to you in the first segment by L.A. Roberts Jewelers, committed to excellence in quality design and craftsmanship in historic downtown Martinsburg. Good morning, Davey.
Hey, good morning to you, Rob, and welcome home. Or welcome back.
Or either welcome one way or the other.
Yeah, welcome back to work.
Thank
Kind of home. Missed you, bud.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I hope you had a nice, 5 days?
Oh. Yeah, and it's really, and Sherry came in to say good morning to me like she does every morning at 7:30 when I'm here. She gets here. She came in to say good morning, and I said really like 6 days off when you do the morning shift because you get home earlier than the average bear because you're here earlier.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So you get home early mid-afternoon, and you got the rest of that day off, and you don't have the pressure of knowing you have to wake up at 3:30 the next day, so it's kind of like that day's off too. So it was really almost like 6 days off. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, well,
it was
nice.
Very,
it's
very nice
to have you know. When I came in and got greeted by Sherry this morning at 8, as she always does in the morning, the first thing she told me was, "Hey, Rob's really in a good mood today. Those days off really did him well. He's in a good mood today." And I said, "Well, I'm going to see what I can do to change that.
I'll fix that.
Maybe I'll get him on a Rob rant over something today."
I heard something about a Rob rant there.
Yeah.
I do have a couple things about that, by the way, because I've had some very interesting conversations and did some very interesting things while I was off. I want to say good morning to our intern and Savant Hunter. Who came in. She was very pleasant and said good morning and welcomed me back also, which tells me that Savant maybe kind of likes me a little bit, I guess, anyway. Savant, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good.
I kind of feel like Savant did.
I think she likes me. Because
better.
She came in here Thursday and Friday when you weren't here, and I told her that you weren't here. She didn't have to come. She said, "No, I want to be here with you, David." That's what she said.
Is this true, Savant?
I don't think I said that.
You don't remember that conversation, Savant?
It's how I interpreted what you said.
It's the look she gave you.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, a look can say a lot of things, Savant.
I just think she's got the number one quality that you need to have in a radio program.
What's that?
You have to show up.
You have to show. Oh, I heard you mention that. Yeah.
So
I did catch some of the Friday show. You did a great job. Wonderful interview with Doug Copenhaver. I thought that was just very, very well done.
Controversial issue.
Yes, very well handled. You do. Let me tell you this, Dave. I don't tell you this enough. You do a really good job at what you do. I'm going to tell you that right now. And I sit here, and I had this conversation with Joe Ferretti there. I don't think anybody does a political interview better than David Welch. I've told you that off the air. I'll tell you that on the air. And I've had this conversation with Ferretti that there are times when we are interviewing people running for office, and I'll just sit here and just listen because of the wonderful way that you have of conducting those interviews. It was just a great interview with Doug Copenhaver.
Well, I appreciate that. You know what I try to do in those interviews? I try to ask the questions that I would think if anybody listening had the opportunity to sit down and have a half an hour discussion with a candidate or an office holder, they're the kind of questions I think the average normal person would want to ask them. And I always have that in my mind. And I'm not trying to trick them. I'm not trying to, play gotcha with any of them. They're just, let's have a conversation. And I think it's particularly important, at least on this program, we're not trying to get a liberal to confess something that they shouldn't, or a conservative the other way. We don't really care. We're here to present information and present a conversation and let the listeners decide for themselves. I mean, I think it's called being fair.
Well, you did a great job.
Thank you, sir.
It was wonderful to listen to. I had a chance to catch that Friday morning while I was up. On Saturday morning, my wife and I woke up at 3:30.
That's early.
And we drove to Pittsburgh.
Wow.
And drove back later that day.
Nice.
My Uncle Jim, 94 years old, lost his battle with Parkinson's disease and died a couple of days prior to that. So we drove up for the funeral. Now, my Uncle Jim was the third of my grandmother Grace's 6 children. My father was the last of the 6, the youngest of the group. There were 5.
This was your father's brother.
Yes.
Okay.
5 boys, 1 girl. There's 2 remaining now.
Sorry to hear that, by the way.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And he was in the Air Force. He was in the Pacific during World War II. And it's always so moving at the funeral when they present the colors. And 2 members of the Air Force were there, and they presented the flag to my aunt. 54 years of marriage. She was my uncle's second wife. His first wife, after he had 2 children with his first wife, she died of cancer, my Aunt Rose. And he married my Aunt Jenny 54 years ago, second wife, 2 kids with my Aunt Jenny. But it made me think for a second how lucky I was as a kid growing up with the uncles that I had. The Italian family that I had was just so amazing. But he is the third of my uncles to pass who served in World War II, the third and last. My Uncle Nick was in Italy.
Oh, so he was a greatest generation guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
My Uncle Nick was in Italy. My Uncle Mick was in Japan. He showed me pictures of walking through. It was either Hiroshima or Nagasaki right after they dropped the bomb. So we were talking about rubble everywhere.
My goodness.
No protection whatsoever.
Yeah.
He lived into his young 80s. My Uncle Nick also lived into his young 80s. And then my Uncle Jim, his given name was Onofrio. He went by Jim. And he served in the Pacific during World War II and worked for the federal government once he got out, got his degree. And golfed till he was 90 years old. And actually shot his age at the age of 86.
Nice.
Was angry about shooting his age.
Very nice.
Thought it should have been lower.
Gotta love that.
But he was a wonderful uncle. He had lived a wonderful life, and it was just such wonderful. It was the reception was held at Salvatore's in Pittsburgh, which was just great Italian food. It was
a happy
wonderful.
occasion.
It
It was a celebration of life.
It was.
More so than a sad, mournful funeral.
Right. It was obviously a little sad
A little
because
sad, of
but
course,
it was
just saying goodbye to a loved one.
right.
Absolutely.
Just very nice.
You know, my father, when he was buried in 2004, I can't believe it's been 14 years now, he had that military, it was on a military cemetery, and they had the flag and all of that as well. You're right, it is very moving.
It is.
My father was a Korean veteran, and a highly decorated Korean veteran. I got to tell you, on a lighter note, what I did since I've seen you. I think this happened Friday, and I hadn't mentioned it to you, but Debbie and I had a problem in our garage. We didn't know what it was. We could hear something, some live creature animal in our garage somewhere.
Fortunately, the Attorney General is on. You remember the last time we had a problem with an animal?
Oh, is he on now?
He'll be on at about half an hour.
Oh, at 8:30. Okay, I thought he was holding
He
out.
gave us advice as to whether you can shoot an animal.
Oh, that's true.
On
Oh,
the
we have to
property.
bring this up again. And so we didn't know what it was. And but we decided it was probably a squirrel, especially after we saw one running across the garage. And so we have a squirrel. Might have a squirrel problem here. And so what we did was we called a guy who is an expert at getting rid of things like that,
Critters.
And so we called around, got a lot of advice on the right person to hire. And we hired, I won't mention his name yet, but I want to get him on the show sometimes because he's a real character and he would be a very, very interesting guest. And I don't have his permission to use his name. So he comes over from Morgan County, and I thought Phil Robertson, Duck Dynasty, had just walked into my garage.
Had the look, huh?
Had the look, had the attitude, had the same beliefs, I thought Duck Dynasty had now come to my home. But he knew his stuff. He set some traps in the garage, and he did put the peanut butter in the traps, and we're going to try and catch a squirrel in the garage and see if it could lure them out. And after 2 days, we didn't catch a squirrel. So on Friday afternoon, I go into my garage, and I go over. We have a refrigerator where we keep mostly beverages and so forth, in the Cokes and beer and whatever in the refrigerator. And then it's on the other side, it's along a wall. All along the wall are cabinets. And at the end of those cabinets then, where we store stuff, is the refrigerator. And I saw that little varmint up on top of my refrigerator.
No way.
Right on top of my
Is he
refrigerator.
eyeballing you?
I don't maybe try to steal my beer. That would have been a real crime. But anyway, he was on top of my refrigerator, and on top of the refrigerator, there's like a bucket. So I pushed the bucket against him, and he kind of backed him up against the wall, and then he tried to run away by going in between the crack of the refrigerator and the cabinet. You know, it's like
Sure.
There's a little separation there. And I don't know why I did this, but I acted fast. I got on the other side of that refrigerator with all my body weight and just shoved that refrigerator right up against the cabinet, thinking I was going to get him.
Yeah.
I was going to crush him. And I did.
You killed the squirrel?
I killed the squirrel. Is that awesome?
What,
or what?
what happened to the guy you paid from Berkeley Sports?
Well, we might catch others. I know the traps are still there. I've not told him this yet.
Okay.
So, but yeah. So, aren't you proud of me for killing a squirrel? I was quicker than the squirrel. Was able to get the squirrel, and the squirrel just fell dead right under the ground. Moved the refrigerator out, got the shovel, threw him into the woods.
Our producer Sherry Dieter Davis says that's awful.
What?
Let's get the opinion.
No.
of Savon.
What would be awful would be what all the damage a squirrel could create by having families in your walls, Sherry.
Savon, David crushed a squirrel. Is that good or bad?
I think that's disgusting.
The female
I didn't
members
crush it.
of our crew
I broke its
do
neck.
not approve of your behavior, Dave.
Oh, I mean, it was absolutely the right thing to do.
Sherry says trap it and put it back in the wild. Savon thinks you're disgusting.
I
now.
would have been. I was trying to trap it. That's exactly what I was trying to do.
Savon, following that story, would you now say you like me better than Dave?
I guess I have to by default.
Sorry, Dave.
Now,
you
one
were
of
dropped.
the things that Savant and I started doing while you were gone, we started having like a little poll of the day on
Yes.
Facebook. Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
We could put that up there. What should you do if you have a squirrel? If you have squirrels in your garage, what should you do? What do you think, Savant?
Mike Hornby says, "OMG, that's horrible." So he also
I thought everybody be on my. That was the right thing to do.
disapproves. Matt Miller says,
He says, "Go, David. You go, David."
okay, Matt's commenting on something else, so no, it's not. It's not that.
that wasn't it,
so,
huh?
but right now it's 3 against you, Dave. Mike Hornby says, "Poor squirrel. What the hell kind of damage would a squirrel do? He doesn't believe. He thinks you overreact."
You know what the squirrels do, Mike, is that they get up inside your walls, they eat your cables, they chew on anything that's rubber. They were behind where my electric box is. They can chew those wires and set your house on fire. That's what can happen if you've got squirrels in your walls, folks.
It sounds to me
I
like
mean, these aren't innocent little cartoon creatures here. These are vicious rodents who want to
I don't know.
who want to burn your house down.
when I watched Rocky and Bullwinkle, Rocky the flying squirrel didn't seem that intimidating.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
See, that's the problem. We animate these things that are very harmful. If
The
they get
deadly
into your
squirrel.
home. I had a squirrel in my home, and people think it's awful that I killed it.
I think
You've got to be kidding me. How about if it was, okay? How about this,
Mike, hold on.
Whoa.
Mike says they eat nuts, and Carly now hates you. You're his little daughter. Cresher Hornby says that's terrible. Shame on you, David Welch. So you are really losing
Well,
points with our female audience today.
How about
And
okay?
Mike.
Let me check. How about Savon? How about if it was a rat? How about if it was a rat? Because all squirrels are rats with tails.
It's a rodent.
But what would you think, Savon? Does that change your mind if it was a rat?
I don't think so.
No.
So
it's
even
not
if
a
it
rat.
was a rat, you'd want me to save the
I
rat?
don't even kill
Are you
spiders.
kidding me?
Steve Redding says Dave is my new hero.
Yay! The judge loves
The
me.
judge
I love
loves
it.
you.
I love it.
And Rodney Rockwell, our engineer,
but-
says you have bats in your belfry.
Well, there you go. See, if I got a judge on my side,
a judge on your
okay,
side.
I feel like I'm in pretty good shape here.
Only the judge so far is on your side.
I am
The rest
upset
of
that
our
Carly
audience
hates me, though.
is totally opposed to you. From
Hey.
6-year-old girls on up. They are lined up in opposition to what you just did.
So on Friday, was it on Friday? I think it was, Savon. We put out the question: should Governor Justice
Be impeached.
And the comments that came back, I thought, Savon, what did you think? I thought they were pretty interesting.
Most people said that they did not approve of him being impeached because then we would be stuck with Carmichael.
That's
Mitch
true.
Carmichael,
She read-
Senate President.
She read that correctly. There were a number of people, by and large, a lot of people who commented on that, saying, no, leave him in, as Savon said, because Senator Carmichael, Senate President Carmichael, would become governor, and they would not want that. And I'm going to guess that with some, he's very unpopular for his handling of the teacher strike situation. Savon, is that your read on that as well?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, so I don't know if he did himself any real favors with that. Interesting for him to assess because, now, by the way, this is not a scientific poll. It's just a...
It's close, though.
It's yeah, we'll call it a scientific poll.
Just between the two of us.
If it's a scientific poll, there's a number of voters out there that probably won't consider him for state Supreme Court justice if he runs statewide because of his handling of the teacher strike. He might have a problem.
You're talking about Mitch Carmichael?
Yeah.
Are you confusing him with Tim Armstead?
Oh, Tim Armstead's the one. I'm sorry, you're right. I was confusing the two. My apologies, everyone.
So
he's not
scratch
running
that
state.
whole last
He's
minute
not
of it.
running state.
I'll
Okay,
edit
how about
that out when
let
I post
me
it.
edit this. Let me put this in. How about if he does run for governor in 2 years?
Mitch?
Yeah. If he does make that run, might have a problem. I don't know. I like Mitch though. So.
Matt Miller says, Squirrel is good meat. Did you eat him after you killed him?
Oh God, no.
Mike Height said he's on your side. He's opposing his friend Mike Hornby. Judy Boykin says David needs to close his outside bedroom door so Rocky's friends can't come in. Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Oh, I can't believe it. I mean, you know, of all the controversial issues that we touch on this show, you don't think that getting rid of a rodent out of your garage would be controversial, but
Well,
there it is.
look at the response that it generated just on my phone alone. Who knows? So let's put that on Facebook. Is David, and I'll phrase the question as neutral as I possibly can.
Oh, yeah, right. We trust that.
Is David Welch's unjustifiable murderous rampage against the squirrel population a good idea or a bad idea?
I thought you were going to...
I think that's a very
I
neutral
just
way to put
do you
that.
approve of Dave killing the squirrel, or should he have trapped and released?
Make sure you put
Oh,
murderous.
see.
Make sure you put treacherous, murderous, serial squirrel killing co-host Welch.
Why don't you just call him Rocky J. Squirrel?
Rocket J. Squirrel was his formal name, if I recall. But I think the way I put it was very neutral. I don't think it'll bias the vote one way or the other.
Rob.
I disagree.
David's murderous serial killing rampage of the friendly rodent population, do you approve of it or not?
I think we could...
Brutal.
I don't think that you're going to be... You just don't have the qualifications to be hired by a polling company.
I don't know. I think that was a pretty good way of putting that. Are you telling me you disagree with my neutrality?
I would say there's a better way. Savannah, did you already put it up?
Yeah, I did.
I don't think I like her question very much either. You guys are so biased.
Oh, no. I thought we were pretty neutral during that.
So.
I don't think
either one of you are my friend today.
I don't think
That's what
Savannah
think.
offered an opinion. I thought she was fairly down the middle.
I think it could have been worded a little bit better than that. See, we're going to get an announcement, big announcement tonight, 9 p.m.
It's like the LeBron announcement. Remember when he put on the hat of which team he was going to play for? He chose Miami.
I love that. Maybe that's the way you ought to do it.
The Trump announcement.
Yeah, maybe he'll have whoever gets picked tonight. Do they have to wear a "Make America Great Again" hat?
No, that would definitely not
That
help
would
their
not
cause.
be a good thing. Huh?
The Supreme Court justice.
If the Supreme Court justice comes walking in, I don't. I guess they're all have the qualifications. I'm going to ask Pat Morrisey when he comes on some of his thoughts on that pick.
So I'm at my neighbor's 4th of July party this week.
Okay.
And a neighbor I hadn't seen in a little while, my neighbor Alex, who's 87 years old, emigrated from an area that Poland/Ukraine, okay, has a last name that he's Eastern Orthodox Catholic, but his last name sounds like a Jewish last name. His words. Okay.
Okay.
So he was actually in that area, occupied by the Nazis during World War II. Okay. Little boy at the time.
And he remembers it.
He does.
Oh.
He does. In fact, he told me a story of his family escaping from that area with the Nazis firing at their backs. He was with his parents while they were fleeing, and he's fleeing across to Allied territory, and the Allies shooting back, and his family being caught in the crossfire. Which I'm laughing just because of the absurdity of the moment. You're trying to flee, and you have Allies shooting towards you and Nazis shooting behind you. But anyway, Alex served in the United States Army during Korea. He's a Korean War veteran, had a successful career, I believe, in the
this is the
chemistry
87-year-old.
field. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He was a chemist of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
And is retired and has been living in our community for 17, 18 years. I know him very well, and he and his wife. And he's a staunch Democrat. And I had many conversations with him over the years where he has told me that, for the most part, voters have been brainwashed and are being duped by the politicians who and Fox News. He's never been someone you would say was anything other than a staunch Democrat. So in my conversation with him on the 4th, I found it very interesting that he's, for the first time, started to distance himself from the Democratic Party. And he has said to me, he told me in a conversation I found to be very surprising, that from his perspective, the National Democratic Party has become so far left, he doesn't know what they're doing anymore, and he doesn't feel like he's a part of that party any longer. He's not ready to become a Republican, but he doesn't feel as though he's any longer closely aligned with the National Democratic Party, which I found to be quite fascinating, because this guy was a staunch Obama supporter, voted for Barack Obama twice. He was a staunch supporter of whoever was running against George Bush in both elections there. And I'm hearing him for the first time now doubting the National Democratic Party and his place as a voter, aligned alongside people like Pelosi and Schumer. And even starting to tell me, formulating his opinions as to how he understands how some people voted for Trump. Whereas if I'd have talked to him 4 years ago, he would have never have even found a way to rationalize how anybody could have ever voted for someone with the rhetoric of a Donald Trump. He's not a Trump supporter, but he's telling me during this conversation how he understands how people have come around to that point of view, because they no longer, and he made he attends church every week, and he made a point of saying that for him and his generation and people of faith, he no longer feels welcomed by the National Democratic Party.
Here's where I think he and Donald Trump have something in common, and it is that they're both anti-left. Donald Trump, way more than being a conservative, is an opponent of the left.
Which is what that's a great point you make, because he made that point too.
Which is what he is as well. And I think that's probably where they have some common bond. I think that's the great challenge of the National Democrats. And Jason Barrett talks eloquently about this and the difference between Democrats in West Virginia and Democrats elsewhere around the country. And that drifting leftward of the National Democratic Party, and the perception that, and this is especially going to be important to independent voters, unaffiliated voters. They're not Republicans. They don't consider themselves conservatives, but they sure as heck don't like that drift to the left that's happening at the National Democratic Party. And that's their big challenge going into these midterms and into the presidential races in 2020.
Hey, it's 8:31. Our news break is coming up next. I'll send you out with the flying squirrel here, Dave.
The adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle. And
I really do hate you.
The Attorney General joins us next.
Rocket J. Squirrel with his pal Bullwinkle.
R&R.
CBS News special report. At least 3 more boys have been rescued from a flooded cave in Thailand today. There are reports a 4th has now been taken out on a stretcher for transport to a hospital. With yesterday's rescues, that would make a total of 8 out of the 12 boys who'd been stranded, along with their soccer coach. CBS's Ben Tracy is in Chiang Rai.
Now, Thai officials say to rescue everyone from the cave could take another 24 to 48 hours. They are racing time. They are racing the rain. So far, the weather has cooperated, but the fear is if monsoon rains hit this area and flood that cave again, it could cut off this rescue effort.
The plight of the soccer team members has Thailand and the rest of the world riveted.
This is basically the only thing people are talking about in this country right now, and the attention is very acute. It's on every newspaper, it's on every website, it's what people are talking about on the streets. So this is certainly something folks are focused on, praying for these boys.
CBS News special report. I'm Deborah Rodriguez.
Now your local news from Talk Radio WRNR. The Eastern West Virginia Regional Airport will be holding public meetings about a proposed zoning ordinance. They'll take place tomorrow and Wednesday from 11 to 1 and 5 to 7 at 400 West Stevens Street. The meetings will consist of informational sessions, including changes to the current airport height restriction ordinance, and will also be helpful for anyone with any interest in the airport and how the surrounding land is used. No decisions will be made at these meetings. The Berkeley County Council has voted to raise residential fire fees. In a little over a month, they'll be double what they are now. The extra money will pay for more professional firefighters. An alert from the West Virginia Division of Highways. The Water Wheel Bridge on Cabletown Road will be closed to traffic beginning as early as today. The bridge closure will be in place 24 hours a day until the work's completed in approximately 3 months. You're advised to use Cave Road, US 340, and West Virginia 115 instead. I'm Adam Boardman, Talk Radio WRNR News.
We get a few spots of fog here and there across the eastern panhandle first thing this morning, but we're looking at sunshine and a really nice day ahead. Temperature near 86 during the afternoon for the high, and the winds coming in light from the southwest. Clear to partly cloudy overnight with lows of around 63. And then tomorrow, the chance of a scattered shower or thundershower in the afternoon with a cool front coming in from the north. Plenty of sunshine, though. And it'll be kind of hot out ahead of that front with a high right around 90 degrees. After that, Wednesday and Thursday looking good. High pressure building back in from the west and the northwest. Sunshine aplenty. Highs in the middle 80s. Nighttime lows lower 60s. I'm Bob Kukin, Talk Radio WRNR.
My friend, when you propose to her, the ring she says yes to and that she slips onto her finger, that ring is going to end up on Facebook, and in a matter of minutes. You propose, she screams, she says yes. She wraps her arms around you. You kiss crazy long. She puts that ring on, and in short order, that ring and your proposal are on Facebook. At Bechtel Jewelers, we say, let's make sure that her diamond and that ring that all those folks are going to see on Facebook, let's make sure they draw comments like crazy. I'm Lori from Bechtel Jewelers. We know the kind of diamond and setting that she wants and that you want for her. It's why we have the latest styles, hundreds that you and she can look through and try on. You're looking for that one ring that makes her stop, hold her hand out, move it slowly to catch the light and her eyes and her heart. We'll help you find that ring. At Bechtel Jewelers, Route 11 South in Inwood. Come see us, and we want to see those pictures that end up on Facebook.
Smith Nadenbush is an independent insurance agency. You see, there's an important difference between Smith Nadenbush and agents who work just for one company. Working for one company, they can only sell the products of that company. On the other hand, Smith Nadenbush can design a program just for you, your family, or your business, and at the right cost. Smith Nadenbush, Martinsburg, Charlestown, and Berkeley Springs.
The Wellness Center at Berkeley Medical Center introduces a healthy way of life. It's not just another diet, but a weight management program developed by the Wellness Center that includes metabolic testing, a simple 10-minute breathing test that determines how many calories your body actually needs, followed by working one-on-one with a health coach to develop a personalized mix of exercise and nutrition to tip the scales in your favor towards successful weight loss. A lifetime of good health awaits at the Wellness Center. For more info, call 304-264-1232.
Let's face it, sometimes local is just better. Locally grown, locally sourced, shop local, eat local. But what about local expertise? At Allstate, Gary Kelly is just that, a local. So contact Martinsburg Allstate agent Gary Kelly today so he can help you with protection that's right for you and the things you love most. Call 304-263-4596. Allstate, are you in good hands? Subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Assurance Company, Northbrook, Illinois. Allstate Vehicle and Property Insurance Company. Welcome back to the program, Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob and Dave, Monday edition, brought to you in this segment by the Brown Funeral Homes and Cremations. Robert Fields and Sons, family-owned, full-service funeral home, proudly serving our area since 1880. If your pet squirrel has been murdered ruthlessly and you'd like a proper burial, they probably don't handle that, but they might. I mean, you give them a call and ask, I guess. I don't know. Rob here along with David Welch, 304-263-6540 and 304-263-6586. Our number, Savant Hunter is our wonderful intern and social media coordinator handling our Facebook page and Twitter feed. And also we are on Instagram now, too. And our producer is Sherry Dieter Davis. So when you call, that's the lovely voice you'll hear answering the phone.
And our producer just came in and yelled at me. I didn't appreciate that in the middle of the show. She did. I just don't appreciate that at all. I have a show to do. I have to stay focused during the show.
Still.
I don't need the producer coming in and yelling at me.
Well, I think you did need it there. Maybe because the movie The Purge maybe a thought of you when they wrote that movie, The Purge.
You know, if a guy yells at me, I don't care. But when a woman yells at me, I just...
Well, it's because it reminds you of your mom.
It does.
Right?
It's exactly what happened.
Dave, the comments keep coming in. The question is posted on Facebook, and on Facebook, the comments so far read as such. Mike Height wrote, "It's a rat with a furry tail. Kill it."
He is right.
The wonderful Claire Ashby Wachtel, daughter of the late Richard Wachtel, owner of this radio station, founder of it, until sold recently to Mike Hornby. Rick passed away a little bit more than a year ago. Claire says, "Trapped and released it." Harriet Wickley Johnson, overwhelmed by her support of you, Dave, says, "Well, I like Dave so much I have to stand with his decision." But
I wish I lived in this city every election just so I could vote for that woman.
Others have responded in kind as well, Dave, and the wonderful Judy Boykin said a picture of the squirrel that's perched on the railing of her deck this morning. Mike Hornby says, "We have started a GoFundMe account for Rocky Jr. Welchicide is unacceptable." You now have a verb named after you.
So when it comes to killing squirrels, we can welch it.
Matt Miller says,
you have to have a refrigerator handy, though.
You do. Squished by coil, death by coil, I guess. Blame the Russians, Matt Miller says. Boris and Natasha from the Rocky
That's
J. Squirrel,
a good
right?
point, yes.
They've been trying to get that squirrel for years.
They have forever.
Yeah. Now, here's something we hope you'll really like. Remember them? I used to say that at the end. And John Hardy chimes
I do
in.
remember that, actually.
John Hardy says, "Who knew David Welch was a stone-cold killer? Poor little squirrel."
Now, John Hardy should not be talking that way to a potential voter in the 63rd district. Would you think that would be a smart thing?
Well, you are there, aren't you?
Okay, I'm gonna put this out to Sam Brown then. Sam Brown, my vote. I'm trying to decide who to vote. I need him to have to weigh in on the great squirrel controversy
of 2018, as it came to be known. Do you think, and the Attorney General Patrick Morrisey will be joining us in a moment or two, from what I gather, usually about 8:40, 8:45 is when his schedule permits him to join us. He's always with us the second Monday of each month. Financial Phil, by the way, usually in this segment, the other 3 Mondays of the month, and any Monday the Attorney General can't make, Financial Phil will be with us Thursday of this week.
All right.
And then Financial Phil is not with us next Monday. He's out of town. I'm not with us next Monday either, as I liked taking those days off so much last week. I'm going to do it again next week.
Yeah, well, you deserve a real vacation. This is your annual vacation. You're going to someplace nice.
The lake.
Going to the lake with your family.
Man.
Didn't know you want me to mention that.
That's fine.
And, so we will be here keeping, I hope, keeping things going.
I'm sure you will.
I'll be out Friday, by the way, going to my...
This week,
right. I'll be out at my niece's wedding in Minnesota, flying out to Minneapolis on Friday morning.
Joe Ferretti will fill in for you.
Oh, there you go. Doesn't get better than Joe. Should we get the Attorney General's opinion on my squirrel situation?
He's, as I see, our wonderful producer, Sherry Dieter Davis, is lining up that guest right now. I see that his line just went to blinking, which means it's time to bring him in. We've had to borrow his expert legal opinion in the past, and we perhaps need to do it now too. Mr. Attorney General, good morning. You're with Rob and Dave. Dave just murdered a squirrel in his garage over the weekend. Is this a prosecutable offense, Mr. Attorney General?
I think in the court of the squirrels, it certainly is.
Well, we did have a local judge weigh in, Steve Redding, and said that he's on my side. And believe it or not, Patrick, there are people who disagree with me on this, that I had a squirrel running around in my garage, wreaking havoc, and potentially the damage could have even been worse. And so I found an opportunity to take him out, and I did. And so there's some people.
Now, did you do so with malicious intent? It sounds like you
totally. I believe that's.
I wanted to kill the little.
Careful.
You know what?
Fortunately, when we're dealing with criminal issues, we've been limited so far to human beings. But you never know. Maybe the authority of the Attorney General will change someday.
Well, you know what, though? I think this deserves an actual hearing in front of the Attorney General, Dave.
You think so?
We'll call it the Attorney General's Court.
There you go.
Right?
I think we should.
Accused squirrel murderer David Welch sits before me. Blood on his hands. Rodenticide is his charge. How do you plead, Mr. Welch?
I plead not guilty because it was an act of self-defense.
His case will be heard by the Attorney General of the state of West Virginia, Patrick Morrisey. Sure, there are bigger fish to fry, no pun intended, but this is a very serious issue this morning, as our Facebook poll indicates. Several respondents have saddled up against Mr. Welch Mr. Morrisey? How will you rule in this case?
I'm going to look at the evidence. This may require some subpoenas, some depositions.
Yes.
So, David, be prepared.
That's okay. I'm writing a check to the Morrisey for Senate campaign as we speak right now.
I don't think that will influence him one way or the other.
It will not, actually, as we've seen over the years.
Patrick, we've got a big announcement coming up tonight. As you well know, at 9 o'clock, the President of the United States is going to make what I would consider to be one of the most important decisions that he has made, certainly in his presidency. He has an opportunity here to conservatize the U.S. Supreme Court for the next 25 years or whatever it might be. 4 candidates, I guess, are in contention. Those names have been released. Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, Raymond Kethledge, and Thomas Hardiman. 2 questions. Number 1, do you know any of them, or do you know of any of them and their background? And do you have a favorite among these 4?
Well, the first answer is I think all 4 candidates really would be excellent, and we have practiced before Judge Kavanaugh. I know that Judge Barrett was just recently confirmed last year, so we really haven't had any active matters before her. We know a bit about Judge Hardiman through the last process. As many people may remember, Judge Hardiman was really considered the runner-up to Neil Gorsuch when Gorsuch was picked last year, and then we are familiar with Judge Kethledge as well. So I think first, every one of these potential Trump picks, they're excellent. And I think one thing the president really did right, and at the time people probably didn't appreciate it, when he picked that list back in 2016 when he was running for president, he was clear, he was very transparent about the kind of Supreme Court justice he was looking at. And my first observation is what a difference in terms of the type of pick that you're getting from President Trump as opposed to what we would have seen from Hillary Clinton. So I think we're going to likely get one of those 4 tonight. They would all be excellent. Obviously, they each have different strengths that they bring to bear, but I think every one of them would really fulfill the requirements that I'm looking for, which is someone who's going to be in the mode of Justice Gorsuch and Justice Scalia, Justice Thomas. Someone's going to look at the text of the Constitution, not write law from the Supreme Court bench.
It's often said by all presidents who make these appointments that they don't discuss with their potential nominees issues. They don't discuss Roe v. Wade. They don't get them to pass a litmus test on any one issue. So can you tell us, how does a president go through the process if they're a liberal to appoint a liberal judge or a conservative to appoint a more conservative judge? How do they know that unless they sit down and interview them and ask actual questions?
Well, I think what you look for is you, first of all, look for the body of work and the experience that the person has, something which would be revealing of their judicial philosophy. So if you're looking for someone who cares about interpreting the text of the Constitution and the statutes, you may look to the legal opinions that they've written. You may look to their scholarly writings and or their past experience, and that can be quite revealing. I do think that it is very hard if you're going to say to someone, how will you vote in a particular situation? I don't know that that's proper, because as we all know, guys, you could have a lot of different facts come your way that may alter the conclusion. It's better not to answer the hypotheticals or to stretch in a particular area when the fact pattern for a case may be different than what you may imagine. And so I think that having some restraint in terms of how you're pursuing these questions is important. But I think all of these candidates have a rich enough history and experience. And certainly the one thing no one disagrees with is that all of them are quite qualified for the position of Supreme Court Justice. They're all excellent in their own ways. And I think this is going to be another home run, as the president suggests. And I'm looking forward to hearing who he picks tonight.
Would it be a home run to conservatives, Patrick, if he were to pick someone who was in the model, if you will, of an Anthony Kennedy. Anthony Kennedy was that fifth swing vote for so long. He was conservative on a body of issues that might have to do, let's say, with constitutional or business-oriented issues, but was quite moderate when it came to social issues. Would that be a judge or a justice that the conservatives would say that's a home run, or do you think that they want someone far to the right of Justice Kennedy?
You know, it's always difficult when people are trying to say, well, this person is to the right of a specific individual, and they lump people together, yet their judicial philosophies might end up being quite different. So I think what you're looking for is not a label, but someone who you believe has a very close reading of the Constitution, who really looks at the text. I like to use Antonin Scalia as that, and not because necessarily of the specific decisions that he's made, but how he's approaching the analysis of these issues. And I think Justice Gorsuch is the same. In fact, someone said recently that Justice Gorsuch hadn't voted on every issue with the, quote, conservative majority, yet he actually made some decisions, presumably on the basis of his reading of the text. So you're not always going to get a preordained outcome on issues. You want to get someone who is a conservative jurist, but who's going to approach it the right way, not going to legislate from the bench, not going to play politics on the bench. Those are critical factors, and that's what I'm looking for. I think that's what I would consider a home run.
Our guest is Attorney General Patrick Morrisey. Patrick, what the leftists tell you, the Democratic leadership, national Democratic leadership, is telling America that any of these picks that the president is considering would ultimately end what we know of as Roe v. Wade. They would overturn Roe v. Wade. Is Roe v. Wade in danger here with any of these picks, do you think?
Well, first of all, I want to say as someone who has spent a lot of time looking at these issues, I do think Roe v. Wade is wrongly decided as a legal matter. But I think that's not really what this specific debate is about. I think that this is about who's going to interpret a philosophy that's consistent with the Constitution, the case law, and can you write law from the bench? And I think that's what you saw out of the Roe v. Wade decision. Now, I don't know, I can't say the specific position that every single Supreme Court justice has on Roe v. Wade, but if their philosophy is strong and consistent with the values I just articulated, that person should be confirmed. And guys, I would note that's the opposite position that Joe Manchin has expressed, because it seems like he's looking for a very clear statement that unless you're pro-abortion, you're not going to get my vote. That's really unfortunate, because I think you're seeing Joe Manchin really leap to the left in an effort to really appease his liberal elite coastal donors, and I don't think that's the right approach.
But Joe Manchin.
Wait a minute, hang on. One thing you're going to hear over the next few months is a very clear difference in terms of the philosophy that I would employ reviewing Supreme Court nominees versus Joe Manchin. And what we already know is while Joe Manchin is going to vote for this nominee, mark it down right now, he will vote for this nominee, he's going to show his Hamlet self over the next 3 months. He's going to flip-flop on these issues. He's not going to be clear. That's not what West Virginia needs.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to say, I thought Joe Manchin was a pro-life Catholic. Is that not true?
I don't believe that his positions in recent years make him pro-life, and it's been disappointing to me. It's one thing to use the label. It's another thing to vote, and I was deeply disappointed. Guys, if you look over the last couple weeks, I believe last week he went on a radio interview. They talked about how difficult and problematic it would be if someone were to nominate an individual and have this litmus test of Roe v. Wade and pro-life issues. That's not the approach that you want for a U.S. Senator. You want someone who's going to be focusing on the Constitution and the text. So I don't think Joe Manchin's pro-life record is very strong at all, whether we're talking about picking a Supreme Court justice and this litmus test that he seems to be setting forth, or the flip-flops on Planned Parenthood. And you guys are all very familiar with that and the pictures that are out there on the internet about how Joe Manchin stands with Planned Parenthood. So I don't think that his record is one of a pro-life individual.
We're talking with Attorney General Patrick Morrisey, Republican nominee in the U.S. Senate race where Joe Manchin is the incumbent. Let's turn our attention at the state level. And as the Attorney General, can you define what powers you have, Patrick, when it comes to rooting out state corruption, which we have discovered more and more recently seems to be all too common from the state Supreme Court level on down to paying rent for buildings we no longer use? And while that may or may not be criminal, it is at least horribly inefficient in terms of use of state funding. What powers do you have to root out these sorts of things and prosecute them when they're discovered?
Sure. So first, as everyone listening knows, the Attorney General is the chief legal officer of the state, and so we represent the state and her agencies in court. We speak up for the people of the state. We represent the state agencies. We can sue the government, the federal government. We can issue legal opinions. We can be engaged in a number of investigations, and we do enforce a number of laws. Now, we do not have original criminal jurisdiction, and that's very important. And you guys may remember a few years ago that the court had made a decision indicating that we did not possess that. Even I think that case was wrongly decided. And so there are a lot of limits in terms of what the Attorney General can do, and we have the ability where we work with the Social Security Administration to investigate disability fraud. We have consumer protection authorities. We can also act pursuant to the governor and state agencies where if the governor were to approve us, we could be involved in a criminal matter, or we can go after a specific issue on behalf of a state agency or the governor. So our authorities are actually fairly limited, and you may remember a number of months ago and over the last few years, I've actually asked for explicit authority in a number of areas to prosecute for drug abuse crimes, for Medicaid fraud, but we've not been granted that authority. And I think without commenting on all the specific issues, because in some cases we have to represent the state agencies that are involved in various matters, I would say that this is one of the flaws of the system, that there is not a position in state government where you have the ability to kind of root that out. A lot of times the authority falls to the U.S. attorney, but that's on the federal side, so that's different than some of these state-based issues that you may be seeing. J.B.
McCuskey, in his report in the audit, revealed the nearly $1 million that was paid out for empty office space going back to 2015. Does the state auditor at all confer with the Attorney General as these sorts of investigations reveal more and more misuse of taxpayer dollars?
Well, certainly without speaking about a particular matter where I may represent a client, for instance, in this case, DHHR, I would say that the auditor, of course, works with the Attorney General's office because sometimes when they come upon a specific issue, they audit something, they could alert us, and then we take any action within our power to try to remedy it, or we could work with one of our clients to go after it. So I think what's been indicated in the DHHR case is they plan to go after it and try to pursue resources they believe that are owed to them. And obviously no one wants the kind of stuff that you've been reading about lately. It's been a real challenge and a problem, and it's greatly frustrating. It's one of the reasons why when I ran for Attorney General, I talked about ending the Friends and Family Plan, and I certainly cleaned up the corruption out of the Attorney General's office, but there's certainly a lot more that needs to be done in state government, and I believe the Attorney General's office should have broader authority to pursue some of these issues.
Are there scenarios where the Attorney General's office could be involved in any high-profile prosecutions of things that come out of any of these investigations?
Well, certainly if the governor made a decision, he could appoint the Attorney General to be engaged in a criminal matter or an investigative matter. And in fact, we believe that might be appropriate in certain circumstances, but that's ultimately up to the governor. Beyond that, the Attorney General's office could be always involved if it's representing a state agency client, because we have to afford counsel to any of the state agencies that might have a legal matter in front of them.
And programming note, in about 45, 50 minutes, Rob Cornelius, the Republican Party chair in Wood County, will be joining us again with the revelation of more information that's been coming out of these investigations, I might add. Patrick, about 2 minutes left in this particular segment before we break for the news. Obviously, you've been following the state Supreme Court justice investigations as those have been continuing along. Any comments? Obviously, I know attorneys in general have been very hesitant to jump out ahead of these investigations, but do you have any comments on what we've been learning so far about our state Supreme Court?
Well, I've really deferred comment because I think the process needs to run its course, because, as you know, many of our cases go before that same body. And so I think it's important that there's a thorough investigation. Obviously, it's been publicly reported that they're looking at impeachment. If those allegations are proven true, they're obviously very deeply troubling and highly problematic. I think that's what we're having a process for, and they're going through that right now. So we're watching, and I can just say that I think it's absolutely critical that every public official on the state level and the local level really remember the basic rule of thumb. This isn't about you. This is about serving the people of West Virginia. It's about putting the people first before any of your specific needs. No one, and I mean no one, is above the law or should be considered above the law. And that's the model that we've used over the last 6 years. I think it's been effective. I think we've run a very tight ship in the AG's office, and it's really been devoid of any scandal or impropriety because we make sure the people know they're serving the public, not their own interests.
Patrick, thanks so much for your time this morning. Have a great day.
Hey, guys, thanks. And be on the lookout tonight. We're going to be spending a lot of time talking about this issue. Obviously, it's something that involves our official office, the Supreme Court pick, but it's also going to be a clear difference of opinion between Joe Manchin, who really has been flip-flopping on every issue, and myself, because I think we have a clear philosophy on how to pick these judges.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks, guys.
It's 9 o'clock. This is Talk Radio WRNR Martinsburg.
Her teammates. CBS's Ben Tracy is in Shanghai.
They have said that they actually took out the strongest boys first. And the thought process behind that apparently is that they wanted to give more time to the weaker boys in there to recuperate them, and also to give the rescuers a chance to really see how this process would work, so they could do it with the strongest people before they go after the ones that are either a little weaker or that are very afraid of what might happen during this dangerous mission.
4 boys and the coach are still inside. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has canceled a trip to Europe and the Middle East, with the death toll from heavy rain, flooding, and mudslides in western Japan up to at least 114. Reporter Gavin Blair is in Tokyo.
Hiroshima Prefecture has been worst hit, but fatalities are widespread, with roads impassable, expressways damaged in 47 places, and 37 railway lines out of action. Access to some areas is only possible by helicopter or boat.
Outside a courthouse in New York City, cameras click as Harvey Weinstein enters to face charges of sexually assaulting a 3rd woman. The latest charges carry a maximum life sentence. President Trump makes a primetime announcement tonight on his next choice for Supreme Court. Political analyst Leonard Steinhorn via Skype.
Even though there's no crystal ball here, we can be pretty certain about one thing, that it's a sure bet that whichever candidate he chooses will be as conservative, if not much more so, than the justice they would be replacing, Anthony Kennedy.
CBS News has learned judges Brett Kavanaugh and Thomas Hardiman are the president's 2 top picks. More than a dozen wildfires are burning in California. Ken Goslin lives near San Diego, where flames have destroyed at least 10 homes.
I was in the house, and all of a sudden I saw flames rise above the golf course, and we were scared to death. The flames came right up to my back lawn.
The New York Times says members of the World Health Organization are shocked after the U.S. refused to endorse breastfeeding as the healthiest way to feed babies. CBS's Anne-Marie Green.
The resolution was based on decades of research showing the benefits of breast milk. But they say the U.S. pushed instead for the interest of companies that make infant formula and even threatened countries that wouldn't go along.
Starbucks says it's getting rid of disposable straws in favor of ones made from recyclable material or strawless lids. S&P futures are up 9. This is CBS News.
To prevent and relieve muscle cramps in your legs and feet, use TheraWorks Relief. Get TheraWorks Relief today at select Walgreens, CVS, and Rite Aid pharmacies or TheraWorksRelief.com. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. ZipRecruiter posts your job to over 100 job boards with just one click, and then their smart matching technology finds the right candidates. Try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. To prevent muscle cramps in your legs and feet, use TheraWorks Relief. This fast-acting foam is clinically proven to relieve leg and foot cramps. Get TheraWorks Relief today at select Walgreens, CVS, and Rite Aid pharmacies or TheraWorksRelief.com. Ask your pharmacist for TheraWorks Relief.
Is your computer slowing down?
Yep, I guess I need a new one.
Wait before you waste your money on a new computer. Go to mycleanpc.com and get a free computer diagnosis. In minutes, you can activate MyCleanPC software to clean out the junk that could be putting your privacy at risk. Unwanted pop-ups, errors, or spam not only slow your computer down, they may allow third parties to track your activities. Go to mycleanpc.com for a free computer diagnostic. Increase your computer speed today with mycleanpc.com.
Here's your local news from Talk Radio WRNR. She says a police officer doctored evidence so as to fabricate charges of child abuse against her, and now she's suing both him and the county council. Kimberly Soward says last year, Berkeley County Sheriff's Deputy Nelson Chopert targeted her during a custody battle and violated her Fourth Amendment rights. She says Chopert is friends with the father of her kids. A partnership agreement for a multi-million-dollar investment in a development plan for downtown Martinsburg has been unanimously approved by the Berkeley County Council. The county Development Authority, and the city of Martinsburg have agreed to team up with Shenandoah Landlord LLC, who will be providing that $7.3 million infusion, and Wishneff and Associates, a consulting firm. Under the agreement, Shenandoah would get tax incentives. Keep a close eye out this week when traveling on Butts Mill Road, Loop Road, and Strobridge Road, as there's litter cleanup going on from 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. I'm Adam Boardman, Talk Radio WRNR News.
We get a few spots of fog here and there across the eastern panhandle first thing this morning, but we're looking at sunshine and a really nice day ahead. Temperature near 86 during the afternoon for the high, and the winds coming in light from the southwest. Clear to partly cloudy overnight with lows of around 63. And then tomorrow, the chance of a scattered shower or thunder shower in the afternoon with a cool front coming in from the north. Plenty of sunshine, though. And it'll be kind of hot out ahead of that front with a high right around 90 degrees. After that, Wednesday and Thursday looking good. High pressure building back in from the west and the northwest. Sunshine aplenty. Highs in the middle 80s. Nighttime lows lower 60s. I'm Bob Kukin, Talk Radio WRNR.
When you're going through difficult times, it's good to know you have families around you can count on. That's us, Brown Funeral Home. Since 1880, our family has stood with other families through the hardest of times. So when you're looking for peace of mind, let our family help your family. Brown Funeral Home in Martinsburg, Inwood, and Charlestown, Ranson. We're here when you need us.
As Hasanovich goes to second with a 2 RBI double, and Martinsburg is on the board first.
This is West Virginia State Delegate and former Little League All-Star Jason Barrett. I can still remember those summer days, the fun of playing baseball, building friendships, and learning lessons that are still with me today as I serve the people of the 61st District. I'm proud to support this year's All-Stars and wish the best to each team.
61st District Delegate Jason Barrett. Trusted leadership, real solutions.
For the last 34 years, the Martinsburg Bulldogs have been heard on Talk Radio WRNR.
Leaping into the air, Chilo Tenenbaugh has it. Is he in the end zone? Yes, he is. It's a Martinsburg Bulldog touchdown just inside the pylon and keeping his feet in bounds on the far sideline. Tenenbaugh pulls it in.
Join Matt Miller, Vic Holmes, and Jason Colrick for all the 2018 football action on your home for Martinsburg football. Talk Radio WRNR, the Panhandle Sports radio station.
the program, Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob and Dave, brought to you in this segment by the Joe Ferretti Law Offices, delivering first-rate service and results for our clients. Joe Ferretti, formerly Hammer Ferretti and Schiavone, now Joe Ferretti Law Office. Thank you, Joe. 304-263-6540 and 304-263-6586. Our telephone numbers. Our producer is the wonderful Sherry Dieter Davis. And that's the voice you'll hear when you call 304-263-6540 or 6586. Our intern this spring and summer and social media coordinator is the amazing Savon Hunter. Savon, good morning once again.
Good morning again.
You did a wonderful job of posting Judy Boykin's squirrel. A very friendly-looking squirrel perched up.
That is it, yeah. And it's the perfect squirrel because it's outdoors. I like squirrels outdoors.
That voice you just heard is well-known and renowned squirrel murderer David Welch, who is the subject of our poll question today. Is David Welch a squirrel murderer? I think, is that how you worded it, Savon?
Do you know?
Not exactly like that.
Do you know one of the things that we haven't even sort of talked about yet was just what a glorious weekend it was weather-wise.
Oh, it was beautiful. Blue skies.
It's what I call San Diego weather.
Oh yeah,
80 degrees and no humidity, and it just was. It was unbelievable. It just was just so nice to be outdoors. I washed a couple cars, did that kind of thing. It was just a great day to do it.
Dave, Steve Allen, who is the head of Homeland Security and Emergency Management in Jefferson County, formerly in Berkeley County in a previous life, said, isn't what Dave did, killing a squirrel out of season, illegal? Since there is clearly a season for hunting squirrels listed in the West Virginia DNR season list. You killed a squirrel out of season, Dave.
I killed him with my refrigerator, though.
That's a hunting implement.
Yeah.
Could be, I guess.
Somehow I'm imagining the guy out there in the woods with a refrigerator over his shoulder.
Shh, be very quiet. I'm hunting squirrel.
I thought pretty good.
Elaine Bartleson from the EPTA says, I know people that eat squirrel. Would it make a difference? I have never eaten them, nor would I just thought I would weigh in on this very funny issue. And I appreciate that.
Well, it's funny to her, but I'm on trial here, public trial, over allegedly murdering a squirrel. I take this very seriously.
There may be a little
sympathy. I have
sympathy.
to defend myself, Elaine, on this.
Well,
and I have an unreasonable partner in the studio. In fact, I've got two unreasonable partners in the studio with me today who have now decided to gang up on me for no good reason at all.
I'd say three. I think the Attorney General was against you as well.
No, he was. I think he was definitely on my side.
I kind of got a vibe.
I will say, producer Sherry Dieter Davis, and guess what? Now Mike Hornby's arrived to work. He decided to show up and walk through the door and call me a murderer.
Squirrel murderer, yes. Yeah, I thanked Elaine for listening, and she said that she's laughing and she loves us, and we appreciate that. We always love when
we
people tell us
appreciate
they
her
like
and
us.
all the great work that they do.
Have you ever been to Harpers Ferry National Historical Park? Dave, spent some time there?
Many times. In fact, I've had film crews out there, and I've actually directed film shoots out there.
It's a wonderful way to spend a day.
Yes, it is.
If you've not done that just yet. And DennisE.Frye recently retired from a career serving and was at Harpers Ferry National Historical Park for years. Dennis, put your headphones on, grab that microphone, slide it near you a little bit, and it'll be a pleasure to have you on the program here this morning. That moves anywhere you want it to move, so go ahead and adjust your mic any way you need to. Dennis, good morning. Thanks for coming in, buddy.
Gentlemen, good morning. Glad to be here with you this morning.
How many years were you stationed at Harpers Ferry?
Well, I began there as a 13-year-old. Literally, I was in just beginning high school. I was at Boonesboro High School. I knew that age 12, I wanted to be a park ranger. Absolutely wanted to be a park ranger. So I began volunteering in Antietam and Harpers Ferry and on the C&O Canal, the three local national parks, and eventually went to Shepherd, got a degree in history, and became a permanent full-time park ranger at Harpers Ferry upon graduation. So I was associated with the park for close to 45 years.
Well, you never had a job because you had a career that you loved, right? That's what
it was all passion. I loved it so much. Every day was a blessing to go into work there at Harpers Ferry. And I do want to say right now that I want to thank the taxpayers of the United States, because I was able to serve them as a public servant for decades, and they gave me the opportunity to work in such a beautiful and historic place, and I never have taken that for granted. Every day I went to work, I felt like I was serving the American people.
Dennis, we've had you as a guest on the phone. This is the first time we've had you in studio. Obviously, you were working while we were doing the show, so making a trek here wasn't part of what would be a part of your day, and we're glad in retirement you're able to join us here in the studio. When did you retire?
I retired only a few days ago. On June 30 was the official last day, and so I guess you call this freedom, absolute freedom. I can schedule now according to my schedule and not someone else's. So I'm glad to be here in the studio with you this morning, gentlemen. And in the past, I was not able to do that. So this is newfound freedom. Retirement is one word I keep coming to mind is glorious.
Mm-hmm. Do you live in Harpers Ferry also? Is that your home?
I don't today, but I did at one time. Right after I graduated from Shepherd, I moved into Harpers Ferry. I was there for 10 and a half years, living in the lower town right on Shenandoah Street in the Master Armorer's house. It's one of the oldest buildings there in town, and it was great. Every morning I'd wake up, I'd see the sun coming up through the gorgeous water gap, Maryland Heights, Loudon Heights. The John Brown Fort was literally right under my nose. For a park ranger who loved history, it was extraordinary experience to live there in the national park.
I'm in touch frequently with people in Washington, D.C., and I'm always surprised by when I say I live in West Virginia. You never meet anyone who hasn't been to Harpers Ferry. Everyone's been to Harpers Ferry. Not everyone's been to Martinsburg. Not everyone's been to Berkeley Springs. But everyone, at least in my life, has said, yeah, we went out to Harpers Ferry. We love it there.
It's a destination. And people realize that it's not that far away. You know, often when we think about West Virginia, it's so far flung. I mean, it takes a long time for us to get to the state capital in Charleston.
Oh, sure.
But it doesn't take long to get from the national capital to Harpers Ferry. And people know that. So we attract a huge audience from Northern Virginia and from the environs of Washington, Montgomery County, Prince George's County, that area. Massive numbers of people that come because it's a day's drive, and we're well known. And so, yeah, it's not unusual to hear that people from around the district have come out to Harpers Ferry and spend a day.
How's the best way to spend a day in Harpers Ferry?
That might be the most difficult question that any of us get, that any of the park rangers get. That's usually the first question we get is where's the bathroom. And,
the second one, how best to spend the day?
The second question is what should I do here? I don't have a whole lot of time, so what to do? If you love to hike, Harpers Ferry is a great place. We have about 25 miles of hiking trails in the park, and they vary. I mean, you can go all the way up and down a mountain. You can walk along the river or walk along the shoreline. And so hiking is a great experience there with great views, incredible views. Some of the best that you'll find anywhere in the East. And or if you love history, even while you're walking on the trails, we've got exhibits all along the trails that allow you to experience what happened there. For example, if you're up on Maryland Heights, the highest of the mountains that overlook the town, we have exhibits all along the way that talk about the Civil War fortifications, the Civil War battles, the Civil War encampments, all on Maryland Heights. And so it's what I call a passive way to encounter history, is that you're doing something else, outdoor recreation, but as you move along and you can see these exhibits, you actually are able to experience history in ways that you didn't expect.
DennisE.Frye is our guest. Recently retired from a career of 32 years in the Park Service. Is that what it added up to?
Yeah, 32 years in the Park Service, 10 years in the private sector. But even when I was in the private sector, I was doing history. I was a president of what is today the Civil War Trust, one of the original founders of that organization. And basically that's a large-scale real estate company that buys Civil War battlefields all over the country. And I worked with Gods and Generals. I worked with Ron Maxwell, the director and producer of Gettysburg and Gods and Generals, and became his associate producer and was responsible for recruiting and managing all the reenactors. We had almost 3,500 reenactors in that movie. We filmed here in Martinsburg. We filmed in a theater in Martinsburg. And then I also worked for Civil War Trails in the private sector. West Virginia here in the Eastern Panhandle and Jefferson County, we have Civil War Trails represented, and then Virginia and Maryland. So I was plenty busy in the private sector, but 32 years with the federal government and the National Park Service.
Is it, could it be a fair statement to say that the Civil War kind of began in Harpers Ferry with John Brown's raid?
I think you're right on, gentlemen. You know, I often tell people that the belief is that the Civil War began with the first shots in Charleston Harbor, South Carolina, but no, it didn't. When you really want to talk about America going to war with itself, we begin to fight each other and kill each other over slavery. It actually happens in Kansas. But that seemed like a faraway place, very foreign to Americans in the 1850s, Kansas. But not Harpers Ferry. Harpers Ferry was here on the eastern seaboard. It was very close to the nation's capital. And when John Brown struck Harpers Ferry in October of 1859, that was the spark that was thrown into the powder keg. And after Brown,
almost literally,
yeah. And after Brown, no one could could avoid the issue of slavery. It was talked about across dining room tables almost nightly. And of course, the country had a huge canyon, Grand Canyon, that was driven right between North and South. And there's no question that Brown led us to Civil War. In fact, I will even maintain as a professional historian, and I'll argue with people about this, that Abraham Lincoln never would have been elected without John Brown. Because it was John Brown who divided the Democratic Party, and it was only because of the divided Democratic Party in 1860 that the Republicans and Lincoln were able to assume the White House.
That's a fair point. DennisE.Frye is our
That's a
guest.
very fair point, and it's interesting that as history repeats itself sometimes, oftentimes people have been elected because the other party is divided. In some cases, we live through that now.
Absolutely. I mean, we have horrible divisions in this country today. Fortunately, we're not killing each other, at least in terms of mass killing and Civil War, but the fervor, the division, the anger over so many issues, that's America. I mean, the First Amendment permits us to be divisive. It gives us permission to say what we want to say, to think what we want to think. Most nations in this world do not have that privilege, that honor, that right. We do. And so America by nature, I love it when we call ourselves the United States. Well, we might be the United States, but we've never been a united people. Never.
Good point. What's different if John Brown's raid is more successful? What changes?
Well, Brown came to Harpers Ferry to launch his war against slavery. The intention was to invade the South with what he called an army. The men in his raiders, they were officers in his army. So he came to Harpers Ferry to seize weapons there at the armory and the arsenal. And then he intended to not only arm slaves, but arm whites that would join him in an abolitionist crusade. So the idea was to come into the South, not so much what we would call insurrection. He was not a Nat Turner. He did not come into the South as an angry white man just to kill other white people. That wasn't the plan, but to free people. And basically what Brown wanted to do was create an underground railroad system that would have defenders along the way. The Underground Railroad was a very dangerous proposition, and whole families never were able to go via the Underground Railroad. It was just too dangerous. And so what Brown wanted to do was be able to provide armed guards and armed camps along the routes that would be used by those using the Underground Railroad to go from south to north. And
so his objective was to get slaves out of the South into the free North.
Yeah, move them north across the Mason-Dixon line into Pennsylvania. That was the whole objective, yes. And so he intended to use armed men to do that. Of course, he never got out of Harpers Ferry. He's captured there by U.S. Marines, and as we know, the rest of the story, he's executed in Charlestown shortly thereafter.
Dennis, what's the earliest battle fought at Harpers Ferry?
Well, the first battle, actually, of the Civil War is fought very, very early in the war. It is the first battle in Jefferson County. It would be the first battle, well, it'd actually be the second battle in the Eastern Panhandle. The first battle in the Eastern Panhandle was fought at Falling Waters in the summer of 1861. But in October of 1861, Union forces cross over the Potomac, occupy Harpers Ferry. There'll be a Confederate counterattack led by a pretty famous Confederate officer named Turner Ashby, and the Federals will go back. By later standards, it's a skirmish, but by October of 1861, it is a battle. The battle was fought exactly 2 years after Brown had launched his invasion at Harpers Ferry, October the 16th, 1861. And, you know, for the first time, there was bloodshed in Harpers Ferry on a mass scale as a result of Civil War fighting. And Brown, his last words before he died that he wrote down, he gave to the jailer, were these: I, John Brown, am now quite certain that the crimes of this guilty land will never be purged away but with blood. And the great irony is that exactly 2 years after Brown struck Harpers Ferry, we had bloodshed in Harpers Ferry again on a much larger scale in the first battle in Jefferson County and Harpers Ferry. And, of course, that was the first of many that would come later.
It's interesting to me when you read the some of the writings of the Founding Fathers, the framers, when they were trying to put the united, go from the colonies and changing it into one nation. Many of them predicted this would happen, and 55, 60, whatever years later, of course, we ended up having a civil war because many of them knew that ultimately you were not going to be able to long-term keep the peace given the fact that the southern states were allowed to have slaves and the northern states weren't?
Well, I really feel for the founders. You know, when Jefferson, we just celebrated July the 4th, our Independence Day, the Declaration of Independence, and Jefferson, and of course he says all men are created equal. Americans believe in that. Americans work hard to practice that. But our very country was founded in inequality, where we had hundreds
All
of thousands.
white men who owned property were created equal.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Women weren't allowed to vote. Of course, African Americans were not even human beings.
3/5 of a person.
That's right. Not even considered a human being by law. Property. Property. If you were a slave, you're property. And so America, you know, I think the great thing about us is that we change, we evolve, we recognize our faults, and we work hard to overcome them and improve them. That's our strength.
You know, it's interesting. You made a comment about, talking about Civil War, and I was a teenager during 68, 69, 70. Pretty tumultuous times in this country. And when you lived through that and you watched the news and you followed it, it was not unreasonable to think America would not make it through this. I mean, it was an awful time as we came through Vietnam and wrestled over civil rights and women's equality and all that was going on at the time. Yet we did. We came through it. We came through the Civil War. We came through the tumultuous 60s. Some say we're now in another civil war right now. The divisions, as you alluded to, are very serious in this nation. Are we going to come through this? Is this going to be okay at some point in time, or is it just the way America is? Is it the beauty of America that we always come through these things?
I think I call it the wonder of America. Most countries do not survive types of things that we go through. Most countries do fall into the cataclysmic cave of war. But Americans love to shout at each other, and we love to yell and scream, and we love to express our opinions, and we should. Again, it's protected by our First Amendment.
At the family dinner table.
Absolutely. This is good. It's healthy. And, we'll come through it. We will come through it. I'm always very careful about the two words Civil War, because in America, that's a defining time. That's a transformative time. We never want to go there again, ever. The Civil War was the bloodiest war in American history. In fact, you could take every war in American history and combine all of the deaths from every war, and they do not equal the number of dead in the American Civil War. And so that we never want to do that to ourselves again. I mean, that was at Antietam, the bloodiest day of that war, the bloodiest single day in American history. We have Mississippi boys being killed by men from Massachusetts, and we got New Yorkers who are wiping out men from South Carolina, and we got Pennsylvanians who are taking kids out from Virginia. We don't want to do that. It's okay to discuss. It's okay to talk. It's okay to yell and scream, but we never want to go back to the point where we're killing each other, and we're not there, and hopefully we'll never go there again.
DennisE.Frye is our guest here on the program, and our telephone number is 304-263-6540 or 304-263-6586 if you have a question for Dennis, which Bob has on the WVU Medicine Berkeley Medical Center talk line. Bob, good morning. Thanks for calling the show.
Good morning. I want to congratulate Dennis. This is Bob from Shepherdstown.
Thank you, Bob.
I remember when he started down in Harpers Ferry with the student corps, and I watched his career over the years. And of course, I remember he was good. His dad was a great historian, also. Dennis is again. I want to congratulate you on all that you've done for Harpers Ferry. You've put us on the map, that's for sure.
Thank you, sir.
I know when I worked down there, people always asked me, what do people ask about Harpers Ferry? I used to tell them the first two questions when they got out of the car down there was, where's the bathroom, and was John Brown black or white? Back then, I think a lot of people never, I guess because the history books never really got into John Brown like they have today.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we still get that question, was Brown black or white? And it does seem interesting when people learn that he's white, especially that he came into the South as a white man to free African Americans, to rid the nation of slavery. Brown was born in Connecticut. He had New England roots. He spent much of his time in New England. And so, yes, sir, Bob, there's no question that That was a good question, and you're right about where's the restrooms. That's a recurring theme. That hasn't changed at all. That's still the first question we get today in the national park.
Like you, I've watched the birth of Harpers Ferry National Park. I started down there in '69, and when the last renters were on their way out, and led by Jennings Randolph, and then Senator Byrd and Mayor Nash down there, Harpers Ferry has been put on the map.
Well, you got reminiscence that are very similar to mine, Bob. And I remember all those years you taught as a history teacher in Jefferson County, and it was always great to see you in Ranger uniform going up and down the streets. You were a great-looking Ranger and wore that Ranger uniform with pride. He was what we call a seasonal Ranger, which meant he worked there during the summer months.
I can just see Bob with a Ranger uniform. Well, I never did, but I can imagine it.
Yeah. He was a real model for us young people that were there at Harpers Ferry.
Dennis will tell you, there is a lot of interest in Harpers Ferry and the Civil War Roundtable. I recall, we gave tours in those days before the park has changed its philosophy, and the Rangers gave tours. And I remember on a hot Friday, 3 o'clock, giving a second or third tour, and I made a mistake on a date by 2 years, and someone that was involved with the Civil War Roundtable came up, and it was very polite to remind me that I made a mistake. People have a lot of interest in the Civil War.
Well, you need to know what you're talking about, that's for sure. And the Civil War is very intimidating to many people. In fact, it's intimidating to most historians. Most professional historians do not touch the Civil War because there's too many people out there who aren't historians who know a whole lot about the American Civil War.
That's a great point.
Bob, thanks so much for the call. Much appreciated.
Right, Rob. Take care.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Bye.
Thanks so much
Bye,
for
bye.
listening to Dennis. Can you stay another segment? Yep. Great. It's 9:29. This segment of our program brought to you this morning by Miller Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Route 9 east of Martinsburg, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty. 304-263-6540 and 304-263-6586, our telephone numbers if you'd like to be a part of the program.
It's the Jeep Celebration event at Miller's Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Martinsburg. Stop in now for great deals on a great line of Jeep products. Get $1,000 cash back on a 2019 Jeep Cherokee with financing at 0% for 60 months. How about a new 2019 Cherokee Latitude 4x4, only $219 a month, or a 2018 Jeep Wrangler JK for only $296 a month. Get bonus cash up to $6,000 off a 2018 Renegade, plus $500 trade. Stop by and test drive a Chrysler Pacifica and get free movie passes. It's all at the Jeep Celebration event at Miller's Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty on Kelly Island Road, or online at millerschryslerjeep.com. All payments based on approved credit, taxes, tags, and processing fees extra. See dealer for details.
I'm Joe Ferretti of Ferretti Law Office. The most common question I hear from people injured in an automobile wreck or because someone else was at fault is, can their insurance company do that? If you call Ferretti Law Office at 264-8505, I will answer that question and other questions you have for free. Get educated and get ready to fight back. Call 264-8505 to protect your rights and get the compensation you deserve. Put my 31 years of personal injury and trial experience to work for you. At Ferretti Law Office, we're here to help.
L.A. Roberts is Berkeley County's oldest jeweler, where every season is new and exciting. In fact, new is old school to us, and though it's nothing new, our old traditions like exceptional service, quality, and value maintain L.A. Roberts Jewelers as the old master among so many new kids on the block. Whether you are a newcomer or part of the old guard, entrust all your fine jewelry needs to L.A. Roberts, Old World Jewelers for a new age. in historic downtown Martinsburg. .32, Rob Cornelius will join us in about 15 minutes here on the program. Our guest in this segment is DennisE.Frye, recently retired after service in the National Park Service at Harpers Ferry. And this segment of our show is brought to you by West Virginia's largest Pandora retailer, Bechtel Jewelers, on Route 11 South Inwood, next to Viva Mexico. Dennis has written a book called Antietam Shadows, Mystery, Myth, and Machination, and I'm going to hold that up to our camera so that our TV viewers on Comcast Cable Channel 10 in Berkeley and Jefferson County, and also if you're watching this on the replay on WRNR TV on YouTube, here's what the book cover looks like.
How many books is that for you?
That's number 10.
I should turn your microphone up there.
Number 10.
Number 10.
Wow,
number 10.
Book.
I've been very blessed as a writer and as a researcher, and that's number 10. Just came out about a month ago.
So you wanted to be a park ranger, but you end up becoming an author and a historian.
Well,
or are they all the same?
They are. I'm what's referred to as a public historian, which is different than an academic historian. Academic historian is your college professor, but public historian is one who works at national parks or in museums, and like a Smithsonian historian would be a public historian. And so public historians also research and also write. And they write for a much larger audience, and they use a different type of verbiage that's a much broader appeal. And so, I've been very blessed to write many books over the years, over 100 articles that have been published, and that's one way to get the word out about Harpers Ferry and Antietam.
The people that I love to hang around with, friends that I want to spend time with, are those who are interested in history and why that history is relevant today. Those are friends that are, and there doesn't seem to be very many of them, and so I know who they are, like Bill and others. I'm asking this question because I have grandchildren, so I'm around teenagers, I'm around millennials, I'm around younger people a lot in my life, and they don't seem to have the same thirst for history, at least my little private survey, that we had when we were younger, or that my contemporaries have today. What are your thoughts on that? Are we losing a younger generation in their interest and enthusiasm for wanting to know what happened in this country and how this country came together, almost fell apart, and came back together again? Those are important things to know. Are we losing them, or do you find them to be just as interested?
I am actually working on a new book called Why Your Kids Hate History.
So I didn't know that, but it was a perfect question, I guess.
It's specifically about your kids, Dave. Why your kids?
Yeah, okay.
And parenthetically on the title is, and so did you. I've interviewed about 50 young people, asking them that question. And they date everything from elementary school up through PhD candidates. And this is something that deeply concerns me. When we went to school, we were taught history. We were taught American history. Now it's an elective, and now often it's not even taught once you get into high school. When we were in college, if you were at a liberal arts school, you had to have history. Now no longer is it even a requirement at liberal arts school. And so, what's happened is the belief is that history is irrelevant, that it really doesn't matter, that you can't get a good job. Well, I remind people that the U.S. government hires more historians than the only people the U.S. government hires more so than historians are soldiers. For example, every analyst who works in the CIA is called an analyst, but in fact they're a historian. The FBI, everybody that's called an investigator that works for the FBI is a historian. Those people who work in the business world, when you're studying your competition, the people that you hire as an owner of a business to study your competition, that person is functioning as a historian. And so virtually every profession and every job and every business and every government agency absolutely requires the services of historians, but we don't call them that. And so people need to be well trained. They need to be trained in the skills of historian. They need to learn how to be an investigator. I think a good historian is first and foremost a detective. They're always looking for subjects and matters to explore. And then we use that information and apply it to today. History is so relevant. So in the second chapter of the new book called Antietam Shadows, it's actually called Mentor or Tormentor. And it's a whole chapter about how we teach history. We had Bob Rizzo on a few moments ago. Bob was a very different type of history teacher. His kids loved history. He made it fascinating, interesting.
I can imagine that.
But so much of history this is what the kids tell me. It's not that they don't like history. When I've done these interviews with these 50 plus kids, it's not, they tell me, oh, I like history. I don't like the way history is taught.
You have to memorize facts, dates, names, and places, and kids don't want to have to do that. And I can understand that it's difficult to have to memorize.
Well, that's right. We memorize these facts. Facts without context are boring, and then we ask them to regurgitate it through memorization, which is very boring. And in essence, what we've done is we've taken the human being out of history. We've taken humanity out of history. If you can make history what it is, which is drama, all history is drama because human beings are dramatic people.
Sure.
And so if you inject this is one thing Bob Rizzo was good at. He understood the drama of history.
Can you give me an example? I mean, so let's say Teddy Roosevelt was president in 1901 to 1900 whatever, and frame that up. Why is it important that we know those dates and how when he was president, or is it important to know what he accomplished and what he was challenged by? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the chronology is really not significant. What's important is what issues did he face? What challenges did he overcome? What leadership skills did he teach us?
What did he have to go through to preserve all that national land that later became the national parks?
Right, the Antiquities Act of 1906, which helped create what today is the National Park System. It was the first time in the world that we have these places set aside because Roosevelt understood that history is meaningful not just in the past but for all future days. And so yes, I am so history can be very passionate, it can be very dramatic, but the people who share it, and that's the key, share it. Don't talk it, share it. Those folks need to understand that history is relevant because we're talking about human beings.
Let me jump in here, Dave, and Dennis, we've got a call to Ken, who I know has been a Civil War reenactor in days gone by, is with us on the WVU Medicine Jefferson Medical Center talk line. Ken, good morning. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, Dennis, you hit it right on the head, man. I mean, in regards to teaching our kids history, I mean, a lot of it, when you study history, you research, and you do your investigations, you learn that the irony is kind of funny. We tend to repeat it ever so often, and learning that we can, hopefully repeat the good things, but not repeat the bad things.
Yeah, Ken, I was going to ask a question a little bit like that as well, and it had to do with trends, because if you understand history, it allows you to look at things now that are trending and to understand if you can find a model that may have happened in a presidential campaign in 1928. I'm making this up. Does that model apply now? Are the same conditions apparent now? I think that can be an important reason to make decisions based upon history. That's a reason to know history, I think.
Well, thank you, Ken, for calling. First of all, if you are indeed a reenactor, you not only love history, you live history, and that's one reason I have such a great passion for reenactors and the work that they do and the love that they bring to it, is because they don't want to just read about it; they want to immerse themselves into it. So good for you.
You probably know our former commander, Bill Raymond.
Yes, sure do.
He was our former commander, our cavalry commander, and we come down to Harpers Ferry a lot, and we still do the old time Christmas. And I actually joined up his unit a year after Gods and Generals, after they got in there. So I kind of.
I'm sorry you missed it. It would have been an experience you never would have forgotten for the rest of your life.
I remember you having
all types of stories.
I remember having Dennis on the show around that time when that was being filmed. Dennis was obvious, as he explained earlier, it was a great aid to the production of that material.
Hard to believe, gentlemen, that was 2001 that we were in production, that long ago now.
Oof. Another thing. I texted earlier, but the first person, and this is kind of like on the tour, and I remember because going down there, at Harpers Ferry was an African-American night watchman, correct?
Yes, the first
casualty?
The first casualty in John Brown's raid at Harpers Ferry was an African American. His name is Hayward Shepard. He did work for the Baltimore and Ohio and Winchester Potomac Railroad as a baggage master, and he would be shot by a couple of the raiders around 1:15 a.m. The raid was about 2 hours old, and he would become the first casualty and also the first death.
So ironically, in a raid to free African Americans, the first casualty is an African American.
And a free man. Hayward Shepard was not a slave, and he would become the first to die.
Ken, thanks for the call. Anything else?
Yeah, thanks. Oh, no, that's pretty much it. So, I didn't have, I think I met you once, but yeah, man, keep up the good work, and I'll get some of your book.
Well, thanks. People have asked me what am I going to do in retirement, and I tell everybody, well, my former vocation is now my avocation.
Radio interviews should be your answer right now.
Well, I'm enjoying this very much.
We're loving having you here, too. Kenny, thanks for the call, buddy.
Yeah, have a good one.
The book is called Antietam Shadows, Mystery, Myth, and Machinations. Where do you get the book, Dennis?
Well, you can get it on Amazon, but also you get it at local bookstores. Harpers Ferry National Park Bookstore has it. Antietam Battlefield has it also, and various other local bookstores here in the area. But again, it just came out. It's been selling extremely well, and I'm getting a very, very positive response on it.
Summarize the book for us.
Well, it's all about being skeptical about history. In fact, the very first chapter is called Beware History. And the very first sentence in the book is, and it's a quotation, "What is history but a fable agreed upon?" That's not my quotation. That is Napoleon Bonaparte. That's the theme of the book. To be skeptical. Don't believe it just because a historian writes it or a historian says it.
That's what we believe about fake news today, right on the internet.
Well, in fact, I actually have a line.
Don't believe what you read necessarily just because someone wrote it.
I actually have a line on the very first page of the book that says, "Is history the original fake news?"
There you go.
That's funny. Book sales is at $19.95?
1995.
1995. And again, it's called Antietam Shadows, Mystery, Myth, and Machination by DennisE.Frye, DennisE.Frye. DennisE.Frye, 32 years at the park with the Park Service, and more than that in terms of total service and commitment to our nation's parks. Antietam is a place that we didn't get a chance to talk about that today, but if you haven't done the self-guided tour at Antietam, you can do that on a Saturday sometime at that park. That's also a marvelous place to spend a day.
And I'd love to come back and share with you fellows on Antietam. That's another whole session that we could do.
And how. Dennis, thanks so much. We very much appreciate your trek into the studio today. And
real pleasure to be with you, gentlemen. Thanks so much for the invitation.
Congratulations on your service, sir.
Thank you.
DennisE.Frye, our guest at 9:45. Rob Cornelius will join us next on the program as we continue to ferret out more from these investigations of waste, fraud, and corruption in the state of West Virginia.
And should the governor be impeached? Rob Cornelius says yes.
This segment of our show brought to you by the Washington Nationals. The 2018 Camping World MLB All-Star Ballot is now open exclusively online. Make sure your favorite Nationals are represented on this year's squad. This is the 89th MLB All-Star Game. It'll be at Nationals Park July 17th and live on Fox TV, too.
Life is complicated, but your finances shouldn't have to be. At BCT, we simplify your financial life. Bank of Charlestown is a locally owned community bank with 7 conveniently located offices serving the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia, Middleburg, Virginia, and their newest office in Hagerstown, Maryland. With over 140 years of experience, BCT is the tri-state area's choice for fast, convenient, and hassle-free banking solutions. Whether you are a high school senior looking for a student checking account, a college graduate purchasing a new car, a first-time home buyer, or investing for retirement, BCT has flexible solutions to fit your lifestyle. BCT is committed to providing everyday ways to simplify your financial life. Also, make sure you are following BCT on Twitter and Instagram at MyBCT or like their Facebook page to see how BCT reinvests local deposits back into the communities they serve. BCT, we simplify your financial life.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Since 1877, Farmers and Mechanics Insurance Companies have proudly supported our local community. Farmers and Mechanics has the insurance products to meet your needs, including home, auto, farm, dwelling fire, business owners, and umbrella coverage. Please contact your local independent agency for a review of your insurance needs and ask for a policy from the company that knows you best. Farmers and Mechanics Insurance Companies, just off Edwin Miller Boulevard on Administrative Drive in Martinsburg. FMIWV.com.
Come out Friday, July 13th and support the Spring Mills football program in their first annual golf tournament fundraiser at the Woods Golf Resort in Hedgesville. This tournament is a 4-man shotgun scramble teeing off at 10 a.m. If you wish to donate more than the entry fee, we have several different sponsorship levels and will be accepting cash donations. So come out and support your Cardinal football team and enjoy some time on the golf course. For more information, call Ted Williams at 304-704-8311 or Scott Highmiller at 301-788-5732.
Simply free e-checking from City National Bank. Perfect if you want basic checking with no monthly service fees or balance requirements. Stop by any of our 7 Eastern Panhandle locations or visit us online at bankatcity.com. City National Bank. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender. This segment of our show brought to you by Farmers and Mechanics Insurance Companies when it comes to your home, auto, farm, or business. We're trusted, reliable, and experienced at Farmers and Mechanics Insurance Companies. Great to visit with DennisE.Frye and his retirement. Just retired on the final day of June, Dave.
Absolutely wonderful visit. I hope we have him back, every once in a while. It's just so nice to get a historian in. And I love the idea of Ray Smock and DennisE.Frye both being in at the same time for 2 hours. That would be a lot of fun.
Both recently retired.
Both
a lot of history.
So they have a lot of time now, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Sivan, I want to turn to our summer intern, Sivan, and just check in on our poll here. I'm looking at on the question that you put up. Do you approve of Dave killing the squirrel in his house, or should he have trapped and released it? Comments on both sides. What's your read on this, Sivan?
Most people say that you should have trapped and released it. Someone actually just commented, kill, period.
Yes.
That's disturbing.
So that's his opinion.
Friend of the radio station. And by the way, we have almost 600 views on this, and the show's not even over yet. So
516 people.
There you go. Monique wrote in here, why kill it, and then called me an idiot.
That wasn't nice, Monique.
That wasn't nice, Monique. Come on. I mean, they were again, the squirrels have the potential in the walls, as this one was, and there might be more, of eating through your wires and creating huge amounts of problems if you don't get rid of it. Maybe I got rid of it in the only way that I felt at the time I could, but anyway, name calling isn't nice.
Albert, former news director Al McGilvery, says, was the squirrel a liberal?
Well,
who would know?
Who would know, right?
Let's go.
I think the squirrel was part of the silent majority.
Let's go to the WVU Medicine Berkeley Medical Center talk line and bring in Rob Cornelius, Republican Party Chair, Wood County's become a frequent guest on our show as of late and kind of the mouthpiece for airing new accounts of waste, fraud, and abuse in the state. Rob, good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Well, good morning, you guys. And first, we're going to have a quick moment of silence on the 29th anniversary of the resignation of A. James Manchin, the last guy impeached in West Virginia. So July 9th, 1989. Everyone drink that in for a second.
I hadn't even thought of that. That's an interesting thing to bring up in this current era of impeachments.
I have a more important.
That of course reminds us how we get to that point today. But go ahead, Dave.
I have a more important question that I want to start with, Rob. I killed a squirrel in my house because it was invading my walls, and I had an opportunity to take it out, and I did. And do you think I did the right thing, or do you think I should have trapped it, fed it, named it, loved it, or whatever?
I think you did because you didn't know whether it was rabid or had disease or not. And I have cats in my home, and I wouldn't want them to get into a fight. But I occasionally have a roof vent that sticks open in the winter, and occasionally get a rafters or attic raccoon from time to time. So I understand your feelings.
Can I ask you one more question, Rob?
Please do.
Do you wear slippers at home?
Why are you wasting
Not
your
usually,
time?
no.
Okay,
I'm usually barefoot. I'm usually trying to train, get my feet a little stronger, like those guys who run marathons.
We're just trying to think of what kind of guy you were.
Rob, what's the latest that we have uncovered here now, and the latest as these investigations continue?
Well, couple things. I mean, last week, I know I spoke with you guys early in the week when Rob wasn't on the show, but you've had a few more things, develop with the governor. Found out yesterday he actually went on national TV and told Jim Nance that he didn't come to work for 4 days. The prior week, he was off coaching high school basketball again, which was kind of a minor development, but kind of typifies, what he does in terms of not showing up, not coming to work. The big thing going on this week, at least for me, is we have a state Republican Party meeting up in Wheeling. It's where all the elected officials, all 126 members of the state committee get together, and we'll probably be running resolutions there and voting as a body. We'll see how it goes, of essentially demanding or approving the impeachment of both the governor and obviously the Supreme Court justices that are in so much trouble right now. But I think as a body, it's important the party come down and have an opinion, Republican or Democrat, do you want clean government or not? And folks are going to get that opportunity on Saturday in Wheeling.
Okay, what is the recent revelation about golf being paid for by the governor with golfing being done by members of the legislature? What is that?
Oh, and I was going to get to that. I've been on that for, frankly, about a year. I first spotted it last summer. And the Greenbrier publishes the list of the folks who participate in the Pro-Am tournament every year. And if you're not a golf person, that means you get one golf pro, and you get 3 friends or whoever that want to pay a big amount of money to charity or just to the tournament to golf with this pro. And the cost for bringing 3 dudes to golf with a famous PGA golfer is $50,000, about $17,000 per person. And there is a long list of public officials, mostly Democrats, but also a couple of Republicans in both 2017 and 2018 who appear to have accepted this gift and not compensated or not paid for it in any way. And the Charleston Gazette, their weekend columnist, Phil Kabler, a guy I don't normally agree with, did a really good job spelling some of that out. But there's a fairly solid list, 15 to 20 guys over 2 years, politicians and state employees, who clearly accepted a round of golf that is worth somewhere between $500, which is what you would pay to play at the Greenbrier on a normal Wednesday, and $17,000, which is the whole package, the donation to charity, the golf bag, all the free stuff, meals. I'm not sure what this round of golf is really worth, but a lot of guys who are public officials and electeds flat out took it.
But normally they would have to pay $50,000 for 3 of them.
Divided by 3, but yes,
Right.
essentially, yes. $17,000 for a single, $50,000 for a threesome to do this.
So
and
we can
the
safely
governor
say it's worth about $17,000 then, right? I mean, that shouldn't be difficult.
I think that's fair.
Right?
I think that's fair. The absolute minimum would be, again, about $500. It's $450 plus a caddy to just walk in there on a Wednesday if you're a hotel guest or otherwise affiliated and just play that round of golf that's not tournament week. So somewhere between $450 and $17,000 is where it lies. But if you read anything in state ethics code, and there are a lot of rulings already on golf very specifically, you really can't take that as a gift. And you certainly can't take most gifts over $25 without going through some hoops if you're a state official, a state elected state employee. That's just not kosher. And the governor's explanation through his, governor's counsel, through his lawyer, is on Sunday in the paper in Charleston, doesn't really make any sense. But they clearly aren't sure what to do. The question becomes, I guess, is the governor running the golf tournament? Is it a gift from the governor? Is it from the golf tournament? Is it from the Greenbrier? Is it from the charity? No one's really sure. But it's pretty clear a public official probably shouldn't take a $17,000 round of golf.
Is it okay to take if you report it as a gift given to you? From an ethics standpoint or a legal standpoint?
From a legal standpoint, for the state officials, there appears to be, again, I'm not an attorney nor am I offering legal advice. I don't want to be sued. But it appears from the state ethics law and that section of code, there's really no way a state official or state elected can take a $17,000 round of golf, or frankly, almost any round of golf. Federal officials are different. And you will notice last year, I believe a couple of the U.S. senators played. But there are different rules for federal officials. They can both, A, accept larger gifts, B, accept golf-related gifts, very specific carve-out of federal legislative ethics, and C, if they have to pay for it, they can actually pay for it out of a PAC or a campaign fund if they were forced to pay for it. So I'm not so much worried about that, but the law seems pretty clear when it goes to state officials. And what it appears the governor did both years is he filled out holes in his tournament with a bunch of dudes from his office. His press guy, absolutely. His counsel or attorney, absolutely. His chief of staff, sure, absolutely. And all those guys golfed and golfed and golfed again. And the governor cannot just claim, hey, this guy's my friend, and hand that out. That doesn't work at all, frankly.
So is any of this paid for by taxpayer dollars, or were all of these scholarship, so to speak, to play in this tournament effectively paid for somehow, some way out of the governor's pocket or the governor's charity?
It would go, yes, it would seem like go to the governor's company, the governor's pocket, I seriously doubt, or the governor's charity. While we're talking about the governor using public resources on the golf tournament, if you watched any of the tournament, you saw a lot of tanks and helicopters and military equipment parked all around that golf course. And I'll be curious, but I know the media's already got their FOIAs on the way to General Hoyer and the National Guard asking what state resources, how much money, man-hours were spent making sure the governor had decorations for his golf tournament. The fact about the golf tournament is this: it didn't have a sponsor as of 3 weeks ago. So they just created a sponsor, which was a salute to the military because nobody would pay them to do it. And now state funds and state resources were used to make sure you had a tank right next to the 18th green. Pretty sure that's not cool either.
You're saying that's the reason that they changed the name of it and changed the theme of the tournament?
He doesn't have a sponsor. He tried to get Qatar, the nation he's been badgering, trying to do things in West Virginia. He tried to get them to sponsor it and failed. He didn't have a sponsor.
Rob, on the day that you were on, I think it was last
about 30 seconds.
Friday. I just want to let you know that we took a little poll: should Governor Justice be impeached? And overwhelmingly, the number of people that commented on this little poll said, "No, we don't want that to happen because we don't like Mitch Carmichael." So just thought I'd throw that news in there.
Ouch.
Ouch to Mitch, for sure.
I can't do succession law, man. I don't know how that works.
Rob, thanks so much for your call this morning. Much appreciated.
Talk to you guys soon. Plenty for you coming up.
Rob Cornelius at 9:58. Final segment, final minute coming up next.
Holding hands and skimming stones. Had a local Chevy and a place of my own, but the biggest kick I ever got.
You're doing okay today, but let's take a little trip 5 years into the future. You're faced with funeral expenses for your loved one. You've got paperwork and logistics and scheduling, a lot of hassle. But a little forward thinking now can save you a lot of heartache later. It's easier than you think. We're Brown Funeral Homes, family owned, in business for over 135 years. Think smart, think ahead. Brown Funeral Homes, Martinsburg, Inwood, and Charlestown, Ranson.
Ladies, Saturday, July 7th, Valley Guns 2 is having their 5th annual Boardwalk Sale and Smith & Wesson Range Day event. Smith & Wesson factory reps will be on site to answer all of your questions. Come test fire the new Smith & Wesson 380 Shield EZ. It's easy to load, easy to shoot, and easy to carry. It's the new Smith & Wesson 380 Shield EZ on sale at the 5th annual Boardwalk Sale and Smith & Wesson Range Day event, Saturday, July 7th at Valley Guns 2, Exit 5 off I-81, Inwood, West Virginia.
Thanks so much to all of our listeners on in the audience today, and to our guests and callers as well. We appreciate the callers, especially during our guest segments. You help make those segments even better.
It was a good show, and just also want to say our prayers are with the boys in Thailand. They've got 7 or 8 of them out.
Indeed.
And we hope today's another good day for them.
Steve Boykin will join us tomorrow with another special guest, as well as we go over that procedure and that operation with Steve's expertise at diving. And more on that to come tomorrow on Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob Bidet. Big thanks to our intern, Savant Hunter, who handled so well our social media stuff today, and producer Sherry Dieter Davis. This is Talk Radio WRNR Martinsburg. The Glenn Beck Show is next. Talk to you again in 22 short hours.
This is CBS News on the Hour.